everyone, how are you feeling? It's Sunday evening here. How are you feeling right at the end of your first week of this round of Challenge XXX? Don't worry if you didn't do all the workouts, which would be included if you're doing it as a 30-day challenge. As I mentioned right at the start, you can do this on your own schedule, you can go at your own pace, that's absolutely fine. But I would really like to hear about how you got on at the end of your first week, whatever that meant for you. I have been doing it. I did all the workouts myself this week, and I tell you what, my legs are shot today. I went out for a recovery run this morning, which it helped. I loosened them up a bit, but I've been sitting at my desk again for a few hours this afternoon, and they've gotten really seized up again. So I know it's working for me. I hope it's working for you too. Let me know how you got on. Really well done, guys. I'm going to crack on and answer some more of your questions. There's some quite meaty ones here, so I'm going to try and blast through as quickly as I can because I want to keep these videos short. If I don't get to yours today, I will get it done next time. But anyway, let's crack on. So these, Becca's asked basically 3 questions here, and she's asking about running, and the questions she's asked would be enough to fill an hour-long video of their own. So I'm just going to give you the basics here. If there's anything about it you don't understand, or that you don't quite see the logic of, or you don't see how it could apply to you, just talk to me, leave a comment either underneath this video or on the forums, and we'll chat, and I'm happy to explain further. So Becca says, since we've had a few long-distance runners join us, could I talk about, first of all, why strength training is good for running? Let me tackle that first. This again is huge. Okay, but I'll just give you the basics. Strength training for running is going to help you to get faster and stay safer, and just be more comfortable while you run. And this is because you're strengthening the muscles that you use when you run. So it's going to help to keep your joints in line. It's going to help to make the movement efficient. So that's how it makes you go faster, and it's going to just keep everything where it should be. Because the thing about running is it's such a repetitive exercise. You know, if you think about it, it's just that one movement repeated again and again. If anything's just slightly, out of line, it'll find it, and that can lead to injury over the long term, especially if you're doing long distances. The other thing about strength training and running is it's actually, running is a whole body exercise, and a lot of people don't appreciate that. Your core is very much involved, keeping your posture straight. All of that affects kind of what goes on with your legs. So, the core work we're doing, and even the upper body strength for our shoulders and arms, and especially the back, definitely feeds into keeping you safe, keeping you strong, and keeping you comfortable when you run. And that was one of the things that I noticed most. I've been a lot faster since I haven't just done running, and since I've done a lot less running and done this type of training, I'm a lot faster. But the main thing for me, as well as the fat loss, which I'll come on to in a minute, but the main benefit for me has been just how much more comfortable it feels. I used to go out for runs and I used to just feel like every step was an effort, and I enjoyed it, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it loads. You don't end up doing a 50-mile ultramarathon by not enjoying running. So, please don't think I'm somehow anti-running. I loved it and still do. But what I found with the way I train now is just, I didn't realise at the time how uncomfortable it was. It's like anything, you don't kind of know, you don't kind of know about it sometimes until you're out of it. Now it just feels so much more comfortable. It's like, same as anything, I take it for granted a little bit now because it's been a few years, but I remember when the changes first started coming in, and I'd go out for runs and I'd be like, my God, this is like I'm gliding. It's like, it feels so different. And I love it when people come along and experience that too, when runners come onto the site. So just moving, I hope that covers most of it, but I'm going to talk a bit more about fat loss as well now, because Becca's next question is the effects of long distance running on fat loss. Now, first of all, what I want to say is how important, if you have got excess fat on your body, can really hold you back in your running. Anyone who knows me, who's been doing my programs, knows that I'm very inclusive, and I'm definitely not one of these people who will tell you that you can't be fit if you've got excess fat. There are plenty of people. I know plenty of people, and it is absolutely possible to be able to do a lot of things in fitness, to be able to do a lot of exercise and be physically fit and have excess fat on your body. However, it's not doing any favours, that excess fat, and you do better if you get it off. Fat is dead weight. It does muscle weight. That is tissue that is powering you when you run. That is contributing to your force. Do you see what I mean? Fat just hangs there and it's like carrying an extra weight, which gives you no benefit at all. After a point, obviously, you need some fat to be healthy, you know, let's not get silly about it, you know, but you see what I'm saying here. That excess fat that you're carrying around, if you have it on your body, it's just going to slow you down. So as you strip that back, that's another way in which this type of training is going to help you to get faster. Now, I've talked a lot over the time, and I've often been misunderstood on my views on long distance running and fat loss. You can shed fat with running, of course you can. Running has very much been part of every single one of my programs. You know, I recommend it, I enjoy it, you know, go out and do it by all means. But long distance running, sort of, and by that I mean beyond sort of 5 or 6 miles, when you get into sort of half marathon and certainly marathon distance, is not an ideal sort of exercise for most people when fat loss is the main goal. If your goal is to run a marathon, fine, but if your main priority is fat loss, I would recommend something else. Long distance running puts a lot of strain on the body, a lot of strain on the joints, a lot of impact on the joints, especially, I'm afraid, if you're quite heavy and if you don't have a background in running, so that you haven't built up that, you know, you haven't built up those muscles that support your joints, you haven't perhaps learned the correct techniques, you really need to respect the marathon distance. It's a long way, and you know, in my opinion, there are some people out there doing marathons nowadays for whom it would be better to wait. You know, I mean, I'm not saying they can't, they can and they do, and it's awesome, but the price in some ways is you know, I think I just wouldn't recommend it for certain people at certain times. And if your fat loss is your main goal, all this long distance running, especially, as I say, if you haven't built up to it gradually, can put a lot of stress on the body, all that impact on the joints, all those miles, all those, you know, hours of pounding the pavements, the fatigue it puts on you, it can really stress out your body. It can have an effect on your adrenal system. It can cause stress hormones to be released in the body. And what happens when that happens is that your body can go into a sort of stress state where it wants to cling to fat because it you know, it feels like it's in a time of stress. And also, because you're doing these long duration exercises of, you know, longer than an hour, sometimes longer than 2 hours, your body knows that it needs fuel for those long durations, so it clings onto it. It becomes, in a way, more efficient, but not in the way that we want it to be if fat loss is our goal. And also, you know, from the mental side, you hold back because you're used to needing to keep going for long periods of time. For fat loss, the optimal type of exercise is short, sharp, fast, powerful, really getting those metabolic fires burning. And that's why a lot of the time when people with an endurance background first start my programs, it takes them a while to find that extra gear and really give a session that's an hour long or less, really give that their all so that they're finished at the end. It takes a while, but they get there, and when they crack it, they feel awesome for it. Now, I'll just leave it at that for this video, because as I say, I want to keep this short. If you want me to talk more about that, happy to come back to it in the future. Just the third part to Becca's question. Oh, I've kind of covered this, but anyway, she says if you want to lose fat and get stronger, but you still want to do that long distance running, what would be your advice in terms of running plans? Okay, well, you know, it's hard to be specific, and it's different for every person. It depends on their background, it depends on how their body's reacting to running, and it depends on their personal preferences and what they have time to do. But I would say that in general, you know, less is more. When people show me these running plans, when fat loss is their main goal, when they're not kind of, you know, someone whose main priority is obviously running, and they show me these plans where there's, you know, 5 or 6 days of running per week, and there are tempo runs and these sort of 5 mile steady runs, which I'm sometimes not even sure what the purpose of them is. I would rather you get strength training on those days and just keep your running to, I would say that you can train for most sort of reasonable distances, certainly up to about a half marathon on, you know, certainly 2 or 3 runs a week would be enough for most people to train for that sort of distance. But it will depend on you as an individual, so talk to me, but don't, you know, this business of running every day, you know, steady running every day, if fat loss is your main goal, it's not what I would recommend. And please don't just take my word for it, or just think this is stuff I'm pulling out of the air. You know, this is definitely based on, it's based on sort of solid research, and you know, it's based on kind of my education, but also what I've seen working with clients. And there are plenty now of runners right here on the website that you can talk to about their experiences. So don't just sort of take it as me saying this. If you're not sure whether what I'm saying is right, if you're not sure what quite how it works in the real world, put a post on the website and you talk to the other runners and hear about their experiences and hear about what happened to them. Okay? Next question is from Eva Boo, and she says, I'd really like some advice on measurements. What points would you recommend people measure in addition to the usual ones if they're not seeing any change there? For example, I'm going to start measuring down my arms and legs. That's where I think things are happening, rather than in my upper arms and thighs. Also, if you have a bit of loose skin, what's the best way to get accurate measurements? We've discussed this before, but I don't think we've come up with a good strategy. Yeah, it's a great question, and it's something that people ask a lot. The thing is, I'm not sure if there is an actual one-fits-all, size-fits-all strategy, because, as you said, Eva, the usual places don't work for everyone. So the usual places would be waist, hips, maybe around the chest, maybe upper arms. Those are the places that most people measure, but everybody's a different shape, aren't they? And people tend to store fat in different areas. So all I can say really is pick the areas that work for you. I know there are several people on the website that like to measure just above the knee. That's also a common area to store fat, or even around the ankles. That's another good one. And yeah, lower arms, you could do that. But again, with measurements, do be aware that obviously in some of these places you might be shedding fat at the same time as gaining muscle. I know you want to shrink there, so the measurements should show a difference, and that's what you want. But do also definitely look at your photographs, because even if things aren't shrinking, sometimes if muscle is being replaced by fat, you can actually look a lot leaner because you're getting that more shapely figure and things are looking firmer. But yeah, you're going to have to, every person in a way is going to have to work it out for themselves. So I'd be interested to hear actually what places people are measuring, and let's have a chat about that. So, and as regards sort of measuring around your waist and hips, everybody's waist is in kind of a different place. Some people say, measure around the belly button or just above the belly button. I would go for the narrowest, where it's narrowest for you, because some people kind of have a higher waist than others, and that's just the way we're made. Same goes for hips and everywhere really. So I know it can be a bit of an issue remembering where exactly you were, and sometimes people use like moles or other little markings on their body to remember where they measured before. I've even heard of people using permanent markers, and not necessarily recommended, but that's something that I've heard people doing, and they just keep going over the mark to remember where they measured, but probably a bit much really. But let me know, and in your journals, that could be a good way to remember, is just to write down, measured above the, I measured above the mole halfway up my thigh, I measured around there. That could be something you might want to write in your journal as a little reminder to make sure you come back to the same place. Just an idea. But let me know what you do, what strategies you guys are using, and that might help Eva Boo out, and it might help me advise people a bit more in the future. But I do suspect that in general it's going to be whatever works for you. Sorry I can't be more specific, Eva. I hope that was of some help though. I'm in a licorice tea phase at the moment. That's lovely. Last question for today is from GMC, who says, I'd like some advice on dealing with injuries. I'm making slow progress back to full ankle mobility and strength after twisting it. Patience is not a strong attribute of mine. I know the feeling, I'm the same. I'm listening to physio advice and doing my exercises, but finding it hard not to get frustrated. Any tips for staying sane? First of all, really well done for listening to your physio. That's the right person to go to for advice when you've got an injury. People often come to me for advice when they've got injuries, and I will tell them what I can, but I've mentioned this in videos before. Generally from me, it's going to be, if it hurts, don't do it, and it's going to be see a physiotherapist, because they've got at the very least they're going to have a degree in that they're very well educated in it, and I'm more of a sort of motivator. I go out and do it, and what I found works with clients and that kind of thing. I'm a personal trainer. A physiotherapist is the person to go to when you've got an injury, and their advice generally you should take over mine. I know a lot of personal trainers will advise on injuries. I would say just I never like to sort of criticise other trainers, but sometimes I do think it's a little bit irresponsible when they overstep the boundary into that. So yeah, a physio, I've gone off on a tangent, haven't I? A physio is the right person to speak to if you've got an injury, and follow their advice. But in terms of, I can help you out on the staying sane thing from my own experiences and, you know, just little tips I picked up along the way. What I would do is concentrate on your diet a lot more. That's what I tend to do, because one of the problems is when people get injured, and this is a really good time to work on not being all or nothing about it, because that's the sort of thing that really holds people back. When they get injured and they sort of think, oh, I can't do my usual exercise routine, I'm off the wagon, I'm not going to eat right either, I'm just not in the zone. You've got to conquer that. So now is the time to really, you know, you've got some extra time as well because you're not training as much, so focus on your diet. Get planning your meals, look up some new recipes, try some new meals, try some new types of food, see what works for you, read up on it. Use that time to really hone that diet, because you know how much, when you get back to full training, how much that's going to really help support your exercise and training when you get back in it. And it's also going to make sure, especially if fat loss is your main goal, you can go a long way just on diet alone. So, you know, get that in place. Make that your focus. And you can also spend some time, you know, reading up around the type of exercises you like to do and that kind of thing. But that would be my main tip, is focus up on diet. And that can, you know, really help keep you motivated, and it can help you stay sane. Obviously, exercising around your injury, which it sounds like you're already doing. Listen to what your physiotherapist says and do the exercises that they've given you. But there may be other stuff you can do. You know, if it's only, the problem is only with your ankles, obviously most upper body exercises are going to be fine. So don't neglect your strength training. You know, there's all, even if like standing's like out of the picture, most of the upper body exercises that we do can be done sitting on a bench or chair or whatever you've got to sit on. So, you know, or even sort of kneeling up on the floor. So, you know, don't neglect that. A lot of the core work can still be done. You know, if you need any sort of ideas on that, you know, I am happy to help. But again, listen to your physio, but don't be kind of all or nothing about it. It's the main thing. You know, there's only certain exercises you can't do, and you can spend time on the other stuff. I had a bad injury last year. I think actually looking back, I must have suffered nerve damage, because I still get kind of funny sensations there now. I got hit in the lower back. It was, you know, it wasn't a training injury. I was in an obstacle race. I was on a slidey thing, and someone came down and hit me in the back. It was an impact injury, and I couldn't walk for a few days, and then, you know, the recovery was very gradual, and I certainly couldn't do anything with impact for a long time. So I focused on my arms and upper body. It was all I could do. I couldn't even do much core. And I was so pleased with the progress I made on my shoulders, and it really helped keep me motivated to see, you know, the shape coming through, and to work on the guns. And because upper body has tended to be my weak point, I'm still feeling the benefits of that period of training now, because I spent some time working on an area of weakness, and it's made me actually a lot more balanced, a lot more all over strong. So, you know, I mean, I'm certainly not. I wish the injury hadn't happened, because I'm still dealing with the aftermath now, but in some ways a positive came out of it, because I didn't just go like, oh, there's hardly anything I can do, I'm just going to sit around and eat crap, and I'm not going to bother to train. You know, I had to keep my head in the game, and I did what I could, and now I'm still, and you know, not only kept me sane through that period, I'm still enjoying the benefits now. But it sounds like you're doing really well as it is, GMC. Hope some of those tips in there were helpful. Right, okay, I'll close there. Get ready to smash next week, guys. As always, I'm always available on the website. I'm going to get around to answering more of these questions next week, but the thread with these questions on it is just a place to ask kind of non-urgent stuff. If there's something you need to know right away, ask me in your journal, ask me in the website. You know how to get me. It's at Julia, always happy. It doesn't have to be a question. If you just want a bit of encouragement or reassurance, I'm always around, as are the rest of the gang. Cheers, guys. Enjoy week 2.